Hey everyone, welcome back to Andrew's Wizardly Reads, and today, guys, we are talking about some recent reads here on the channel. But before we get into that, please like this video and subscribe to the channel, as it does help the channel grow, and you can check the description box down below, right down there, for links to all of my social media, including the Discord and my Patreon, if you want to help support the channel in a more substantial way. It is always greatly appreciated. Again, links right down there. And with that out of the way, let's jump right on into this video. And essentially, I've got quite a lot to talk about. Where to begin? It's been a very, very mixed month. It's been a month of kind of like self-discovery and stuff like that. Speaking of discovery, we'll talk about the books I don't physically own yet. This one does not have a cover available for me to show you yet, but this is J.A.J. Minton's Discovery. This is like a post-apocalyptic collapse of society, cosmic horror, Lovecraftian style of novel about these characters who go on this journey, and it's really, really fascinating because basically, I don't want to talk too much about this because this doesn't come out till May, but I'm going to tell you what, this is an honorable mention top 10 of the year. For me personally, we've got some amazing characters. We've got cultures all over the world that are being explored. We've got these cosmic horror elements. The reason it's going to be an honorable mention is it doesn't even come out until May of 2025. And so I'm honorable mentioning saying Discovery is going to make my top 10 list of the year, which will be, that video will be coming out next month. Very, very good. I then did Murder on the North Pole Express. This is by Patricia Meredith. This is something that was just like, I was in a funk and I needed something festive. 'Tis the season, am I right? And essentially this is Sam Shovel Mysteries number 2. And here we've got Sam Shovel. It's a new year and he's like, hey, I've never been on the North Pole Express. Which is, you know, the whole children's book. It kind of uses that idea of the North Pole Express and stuff like that. And Sam Shovel kind of gets up to more mysteries and shenanigans up here on this. And I gotta say, like, I prefer Death of a Christmas Tree Salesman, which is Sam Shovel number 1, a little bit more than its sequel. But still a very good, very relaxing, very festive read. There's, again, cookie recipes. There's mysteries. There's a bunch of Christmas lore. There is more Christmas lore out there than you might think. There's hundreds of years and many, many different nations that celebrate this season much differently. And Patricia Meredith has done her research, so fantastic. Just for me personally, the twist at the end didn't quite really work for me. I would give this one probably a C+ to a B- rating. Very, very good. Well worth the read, though. Just for the lore alone. Like, it was really, really good. And then I did Past 3 O'Clock. This is by Richie Joyce. And again, I came across an Instagram video of Christopher Tester, the narrator, kind of just narrating some of the book. And I was like, oh man, this sounds really good. This is kind of a Dickensian ghost story. Deals with, like, you know, the stages of grief and regret and stuff like that. And what's really interesting is because it's a ghost story, like, our main character doesn't make it past the first couple chapters, and then we get to deal with him as a ghost and kind of settling his affairs and stuff like that. It's very, very good. I really enjoyed this story. And Christopher Tester's amazing. It's a really short read. The audiobook was only 5 hours long, with not even sped up at all. So it's well worth your read. Very good. I would give this one probably a B+ to an A- rating. I highly recommend people check this one out. Especially just if you're looking for a kind of Dickensian ghost story, but that's not A Christmas Carol. So those are the 3 that I don't own. And then we're going to tackle the big controversy first. We've got Brandon Sanderson's Wind and Truth. And you can see where I'm at in this novel. And I have been there for 2 weeks. I have walked away from this book twice now. Not because I think the story or the characters are particularly bad. I just personally think there was no reason for this to be 1,300 pages. There's a lot of trimming that could have and probably should have been done. There's tons of introspection. The humor, personally, for me, doesn't really work here. There's a lot of forcing in of modern or, like, real-world curse words and stuff like that. That kind of feels tongue-in-cheek. Like, Brandon is kind of having a giggle to himself of, like, haha, I said shit in a video or in a chapter, and teehee, like, and then like, oh, you're using. There's just these little moments that just jarred me out of the story, and it kept happening over and over. And the first couple of days, like, the pacing is just really, really slow, and I wasn't feeling the urgency. So this is not a DNF. I have actually just purchased a whole bunch of Cosmere books. And I am planning on doing more Cosmere rereads, which Wind and Truth will be a part of. Also, I just got to give a huge shout out to my friend John from Talking Story. I told him in a comment when he was going to Dragonsteel Nexus on his channel, I was like, hey, if you find a signed copy, go ahead and snag it for me. And while he was at Dragonsteel, he snagged me a signed copy of Wind and Truth, which I am incredibly grateful. So thank you, John, so much for your generosity and your kindness. So I will cherish this forever, and I will read it. I promise I'll come back to it when I'm more with adjusted expectations. I personally think that book could have been 1,100 pages and been just fine. In fact, it would have probably been even better. So now on to the stuff that I have finished and or I am reading. One of the things, again, speaking of John from Talking Story, he posted in a video that we were going to be doing a live show discussion of One Piece in February, and I was like, oh no, I've got to read 9 volumes of One Piece in like 2 months. He got the month wrong. It's supposed to be March. But I started One Piece early. I was over at my in-laws, and I brought this along with me, and I completely reread the first volume of One Piece, and I plan on probably reading volume 2 here pretty soon, and just kind of slowly make my way and get caught back up to where John is so that we can all discuss. I believe the first discussion is going to take place all the way through the Arlong Pirates arc. So I think that's where we're going to be doing One Piece. But I've, again, done this section of the story probably 10 times in my life. So this is nothing new. This is just a refresher for me. But again, I love One Piece. The only thing that bugs me is the manga calls him Zolo, at least at the beginning of the manga. And my brain goes, no, it's Zoro. So, yeah, that's my only really critique here. It's not Zolo, it's Zoro. Get it right. Well, then again, who am I to critique? Next up, we've got, oh gosh, right here. I talked about this in the mid-month wrap-up. We've got right here, Just After Sunset. I was going to be doing The Outsider or, like, Nightmares and Dreamscapes, but I decided to ask somebody who has a little bit more experience in Stephen King than me, which is Jake the Bookish Drummer, and he's like, actually, you should do Just After Sunset. Did I say Just After Midnight? Anyway, it's Just After Sunset, which is another short story collection, and this was fantastic. I would give this probably an A- to an A rating. I just loved these stories. These are more like a little bit of ghost stories and stuff like that, and it's got this nice little holographic cover that I am just a huge fan of. So yes, I read this. This is a great collection of Stephen King. I would arguably say that this is better than Different Seasons. Again, that's a novella collection, and this is a short story collection, but I actually enjoyed this more than I enjoyed Different Seasons. So there's that. I'm on record as saying that. All right, then Janie Wertz to Ride Hell's Chasm. This was my patron pick for December. Speaking of the Patreon, I want to give a huge shout out to my top tier Wizard Master patrons. Thank you all so much for your support. I really appreciate everything that you do to support this channel. You guys are amazing. Again, I also want to shout out the Wizard Journeymen, the Adepts, and the Apprentices. Thank you all so much for your support. And if you want to check out and vote on either books to be read, or I'm thinking of starting a book club in the Patreon, again, the link in the description box down below. Your support goes towards keeping the lights on, maintaining the equipment, paying for video editing, which is something that is coming in Q1 of 2025. So yes, anyway, they voted for me to read this fantastic book, and I'm going to give this a B+ to an A- rating. I really struggle with the first 40% of this book. I don't know if it's a pacing thing or if, like, I just wasn't quite vibing with it, but I started and stopped this book 3 times. The third time being the time I finished it. What I will say is this is one of those, like, standalone novels where at the end, I had chills running down my arms. It was fantastic. Mikhail's end and the conclusion of this story, like, it was just beautiful. It was poignant. It was magical to me. When it comes to the magic system and everything in this book, I don't particularly like that. There's some just kind of like a lot of the stuff at the end is just kind of snap your fingers and it's fixed. And I didn't really, that just felt a bit kind of rushed. But overall, like, great characters. If you love horses, check this book out. Also, the griffins in here, which I know they're not called griffins. They're called kestrels. Kestrels? Kestrels sounds wrong. Somebody will tell me in the comments down below. But they're basically fire-breathing griffins. Really cool in here. I liked the demons. I liked a lot of the elements of this book, and I'm excited to be jumping into Wars of Light and Shadow in 2025 and 2026, because more Janny Wirtz is always a good thing. I also read recently The Tomb by F. Paul Wilson, another contender for Book of the Year. This is definitely making that list. And what can I say about Repairman Jack #1? Other than I loved it. It reminded me of one of my favorite books growing up, which is Relic and Reliquary. It's got that kind of singular monster that's a threat. It's got some kind of culture clashes, and I don't know, I loved this. Repairman Jack is this just kind of guy who is a fixer. He lives his life the way he wants to live it, and his girlfriend's really not okay with that, but then, like, when her family is jeopardized, she kind of comes to Jack for help, and he does everything he can to help her. This was absolutely fantastic. 5 stars. I've got so much F. Paul Wilson that I need to read now, because he is now a priority author for me. And then I've got 3 more that I have taken down, and 1 that I'm currently reading. I've got The Last Kingdom by Bernard Cornwell. This was exquisite. This was definitely a top 10 of the quarter for me. I just loved Uhtred. I loved the wry humor in here. This, oh, by the way, A+. This I would give probably an A to an A+ rating, right around in there. Maybe like a 98 out of 100. This was really, really good, really enjoyable, great wry humor. Overall, just an absolute delight. I cannot wait to continue this series. I've been kind of chatting in the Discord with Owen Edwards, who I was buddy reading this with. We kind of need to kind of come together and finalize our thoughts, but really, really good. I've read another Jonathan Mayberry. This should surprise nobody. I've got a lot of Mayberry that I need to get through, and this was spectacular. Maybe not my favorite thing ever, but I would give it a B+ to an A- rating. It was really, really entertaining. It was pulse-pounding. The zombies didn't seem to be the main focus of the Joe Ledger book. This is Patient Zero, by the way, if you can't see it. This is the first Joe Ledger novel of like 16 different books. Really, really good, really gripping. This was more of a special forces kind of thriller novel that just happens to have zombies. I'm kind of tired of the whole Middle Eastern terrorist sort of thing that is something that was kind of very prevalent back when this was written. And a lot of the stuff that happens is just like the antagonist didn't really think these things through, and it kind of all blows up in their face. So that's kind of my thoughts on Patient Zero. I am excited to continue the series, as I think I've got the first 5 books already. So there is that. And then finally, a YouTube commenter was just like on a video, was like, "Hey, I can't wait for you to return to Monpress." And I was like, you know what? I think I'm ready to return to Monpress as well. This wasn't even on my radar until I saw that comment. So I picked up The Spirit War, and I have since finished this. This is a solid Monpress novel. I would give this probably a B to a B+. Very, very good. Kind of predictable, where, like, you know, I could see a lot of the plot elements before they happened, or I could guess who, like, was one of the main antagonists in the story, or who was like a sleeper spy or stuff like that. Like, that stuff was kind of obvious to me as the book was progressing. And so, like, there weren't a lot of surprises in this book, but I did like the end because it sets up the final book, and I'm excited to see where that ends up. And the final book that I am currently reading, I'm only about 40 pages in, is another F. Paul Wilson. This is Black Wind. So far, we're set in San Francisco in the 1920s, right before the outbreak of World War II, which, of course, is going to analyze those and the ramifications of, well, the war. And I know this has got some, like, secret history. This is some horror. It's F. Paul Wilson. All I can tell you is I'm super excited. There's a lot of Japanese culture in here. We've talked about 47 Ronin. We've talked about samurai training, all while in San Francisco and dealing with the culture clashes and the friction between just Americans and the Japanese in this time period. I'm anticipating this to be a fantastic read. that is everything that I read recently. Let me know in the comments down below some of your recent reads. I would love to chat with you. And till next time, guys, peace out and stay magical. Bye. And as always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons. Thank you for supporting my passion and my hobby. It means the world to me.